A great war leaves the country with three armies: an army of cripples, an army of mourners, and an army of thieves. In the world of games, a great failure can leave a franchise with a similar triad: wounded developers, grieving fans, and opportunistic competitors. Battlefield 2042 was that great failure for DICE and EA. A once proud series left crippled and humbled by a disastrous launch and a tidal wave of backlash. But every war story needs a redemption arc. Now let's head to your favorite bar, grab a drink, and join me for today's story about Battlefield 6 and the long twisted journey that took it through development hell and back again. In late 2021, Battlefield 42 arrived with tremendous hype and was promptly detonated. The game launched in November 2021 to scathing reviews, becoming the worst reviewed Battlefield in series history. Players were livid about missing basic features, no in-game voice chat, or even a scoreboard at launch. Controversial design changes where the new specialist system replaced beloved class roles, and a plethora of bugs plus performance issues. On Steam, 2042 earned the ignominious distinction of being one of the platform's worst rated games ever, at one point with only 21% positive user reviews. Within 2 months of release, 2042's player count plummeted so hard that an older title, Battlefield 5, had more people playing than the supposed new flagship. The impact on the Battlefield community was devastating. Longtime fans, some who had been with the franchise since the days of Battlefield 1942 or Bad Company 2, felt betrayed by design decisions that didn't feel like Battlefield. There was no single-player campaign. The class-based teamwork that defined the series had been gutted, and massive 128-player matches felt chaotic in all the wrong ways. Even the developers were dismayed. Inside DICE, the team shared the community's frustration. Battlefield 2042's failure didn't just hurt fans, it shook the very people making the game. In December 2021, mere weeks after 2042's rocky debut, EA initiated a major shakeup. The company appointed the renowned Vin Zampella, co-founder of Infinity Ward and Respawn Entertainment, as the new head of the entire Battlefield franchise. EA's hope was that his leadership could steer Battlefield back on track and rebuild trust. As part of his franchise reboot, DICE's longtime general manager Oscar Gabrielson stepped down, and Rebecca Kutas, formerly of Ubisoft Annecy, was brought in as the new GM of DICE Stockholm. EA didn't stop at personnel changes. They unveiled an ambitious plan to expand Battlefield's scope and narrative, something 2042 had entirely lacked. A new Seattle-based studio called Ridgeline Games was formed in early 2022, headed by Halo co-creator Marcus Leto, tasked with injecting more storytelling into the Battlefield universe. His job? Develop a proper single-player campaign set in the Battlefield world, bringing back narrative content for the first time since 2018. Meanwhile, in Los Angeles, DICE LA was rebranded as Ripple Effect Studios and given a new project in the Battlefield franchise. Ripple Effect had just built the portal mode for BF 2042, and now they were assigned to develop a new Battlefield experience connected to 2042's world. These moves signaled EA's commitment to a Battlefield universe overhaul. The franchise would no longer rely solely on DICE in Sweden to shoulder everything. Instead, multiple studios across North America and Europe would collaborate on the next game. This next title, which we'll call Battlefield 6 later on, quietly entered development around late 2021 or early 2022, and would grow into one of the most ambitious, challenging undertakings in EA's history. Inside EA, the new game was given the code name Project Glacier. The name turned out to be fitting in some unintentional ways. Glaciers are massive, slow-moving, and prone to hitting cracks, an apt metaphor for a project that would soon swell in scope and encounter perilous obstacles beneath the surface. EA's top executives went all in on this new game. CEO Andrew Wilson openly stated that more had been invested in it than any Battlefield product before. Indeed, by mid-2025, insiders reported that Battlefield 6's budget had ballooned well north of $400 million, placing it among the most expensive video game productions of all time, ever, and definitely would be the largest budget of any Battlefield title to date. Why such a colossal budget? Because the goals were lofty. Internally, they set a target for Battlefield 6 to reach 100 million players, a staggering number meant to rival industry juggernauts like Call of Duty Warzone and Fortnite. For context, the most successful Battlefield game to date, 2016's Battlefield 1, amassed around 30 million players, and 2042 had only 22 million in its first couple of years. A 100 million player target was unprecedented, pure fantasy even. The ambitious target dramatically shaped the game's design. To hit it, EA believed Battlefield 6 needed to be everything for everyone. The feature list grew accordingly and soon became a laundry list of modes and offerings. First, Battle Royale was deemed a must-have, given the free-to-play BR's craze dominating the industry with Warzone. So Battlefield 6 was planned to launch with its own Battle Royale mode, offered free-to-play to lure in a massive crowd. Next, a single-player campaign would return, catering to fans who missed the narrative campaigns that Battlefield 2042 skipped. Of course, the traditional multiplayer suite would be the centerpiece, with classic modes like Conquest and Rush confirmed. The Portal mode introduced in 2042, allowing custom game modes and beloved legacy maps, would be vastly expanded for the new game as well. In short, Battlefield 6 was envisioned as a mega platform, combining many experiences under one roof to appeal to different audiences. And to build that, they threw resources at the problem on an unparalleled scale. By early 2023, this grand vision had passed EA's internal checkpoint Gate 3, indicating the project moved into full production, but some involved were already raising red flags. Insiders were expressing concern that leadership was barreling ahead without sufficient planning. Despite the huge budget, development was struggling to find its footing. The scope creep was very real. All those modes and features required hundreds of additional developers being pulled in from all across EA studios to keep production on track. Even with more hands, core deadlines started slipping as 2023 wore on. Internal reports described multiple setbacks in 2023 that significantly disrupted production, forcing EA to bring in even more support and further inflating costs beyond that $400 million mark. To coordinate this behemoth, EA made a bold structural move. It unified DICE, Ripple Effect, Criterion, and Motive under a single cross-continental umbrella known as Battlefield Studios. In practice, this meant 4 lead studios sharing responsibility for Battlefield 6, a stark departure from past titles, which were primarily led by DICE. Now, DICE Stockholm, Ripple Effect in Los Angeles, Criterion in the UK, and Motive in Montreal all had major pieces of the project. On paper, having 4 studios collaborate on equal footing sounds like a sensible way to tackle a massive game. After all, other franchises, like Ubisoft's Assassin's Creed, successfully use multi-studio co-development on huge projects. But the reality of Battlefield 6's distributed development was fraught with challenges. DICE, the Swedish studio that created Battlefield and had always been the franchise's guiding force, suddenly found itself just one voice among many, now answering to new American-based leadership. This led to tension and even a bit of an identity crisis within DICE. By one account, some at DICE felt the studio was being treated as just a cog in the Battlefield machine rather than the core creative driver. Cultural differences made coordination tricky as well. Working across Stockholm, Los Angeles, Guildford, and Montreal meant bridging not just geography and time zones, but also different work cultures and expectations. As the project expanded, differences in cultural values between US leadership and the workers in Europe started to emerge. In plainer terms, what one studio's management saw as a reasonable directive might have rubbed another studio the wrong way. Communication breakdowns sometimes left teams feeling out of the loop or marginalized. When anyone raised concerns about the game's direction or production processes, they sometimes found themselves left off follow-up meetings. The feedback loop quietly closed and decisions moved on without them. That paints a picture of a top-down management style that alienated some veteran Battlefield developers. The logistical strain of coordinating 4 studios also took a personal toll on many individuals. With teams spread across Stockholm, Los Angeles, Guildford, and Montreal, schedules stretched thin. Global handoffs kept the calendar full. Europe at dawn, North America by afternoon, and the real heads-down work after hours. Weeks of back-to-back syncs added up and fatigue showed. Many stepped away on extended health leave, some for the better part of a year, as EA introduced an exhaustion leave path so people could reset and return. All these issues, communication mishaps, cultural friction, missed milestones, and team burnout, the project slid into what felt like development hell. By late 2023, the cracks were showing, and the single-player campaign was where they ran the deepest. Perhaps the most dramatic turmoil in Battlefield 6's development came from its attempt to resurrect the single-player Battlefield campaign. Remember, Battlefield 5 in 2018 was the last series entry that had a single-player mode. 2042 has shipped as multiplayer only, and fans have been asking for the return of a story mode. Arcus Leto's Seattle team at Ridgeline Games spent 2022 to 2023 working on a narrative campaign for Battlefield 6. This was envisioned as a standalone story set in the Battlefield universe, fulfilling EA's promise of injecting storytelling back into the franchise. But things did not go smoothly. Details on exactly what went wrong are scarce, since NDAs have shrouded much of Ridgeline's work, but the outcome is clear. By early 2024, EA decided to shut down Ridgeline Games entirely, effectively pulling the plug on whatever campaign concept that team had been developing. The closure was abrupt and came as part of a larger EA restructuring and cost-cutting wave. On February 29, 2024, EA's COO, Laura Mill, announced that Ridgeline would be winding down as a standalone studio in Seattle. Marcus Leto had recently made a personal decision to leave the project, and shortly after, Ridgeline's creative director also departed. The writing on the wall, Ridgeline Games was no more, barely a year and a half after it had been officially unveiled. Internally, EA tried to explain the shutdown by pointing to process failures. Leadership privately blamed a lack of periodic check-ins and internal reviews with the Ridgeline team as the reason the campaign went so far off course. Those closer to Ridgeline, however, painted a more sympathetic picture of an impossible task. The small Seattle studio was expected to hire up a brand new team from scratch and deliver a full-length campaign on the same timeline as DICE's established teams, which was arguably an unrealistic demand. In any case, by spring 2024, Battlefield 6's campaign was the one major component far behind schedule. It was officially deemed in crisis mode. Yet, EA insisted that Battlefield's single-player project would continue, despite Ridgeline's closure. They weren't about to completely abandon the promise of a campaign. Instead, the campaign responsibility was handed off to Criterion, the veteran UK studio, with support from DICE and Motive to salvage what they could of Ridgeline's work. Many Ridgeline team members were reassigned rather than let go. Some moved to Criterion in England to keep building the campaign, while others joined Ripple Effect to bolster the multiplayer side of Battlefield 6. Essentially, by March 2024, the campaign effort was rebooted under new leadership, but now with only 18 months left until the target launch in late 2025, it doesn't take an insider to guess how that would turn out. For the developers, this was a sobering turning point. 2 years of work had effectively been lost and the clock was ticking faster than ever. Battlefield 6's team now had to triage. Multiplayer and other modes were priority, and the campaign, while still planned, might have to release in pared down form. Indeed, whispers at the time suggested that they might have to cut a part of the single player out just to have something to ship at launch. Some staff braced to work through summer 2024 in heavy crunch to make it happen, exacerbating the burnout problem. It was unquestionably a low point in the project's journey. And yet, amid this crisis, Battlefield 6 still had a fighting chance. The core multiplayer development, despite all the turbulence, was progressing. By early 2025, most of the game's components had hit their production milestone on schedule. DICE and the other teams had kept the multiplayer on track, and morale, though strained, hadn't broken. In fact, something new was about to inject much needed energy and clarity into Battlefield 6's trajectory, a bold initiative to involve the players before the game was even out. Faced with 2042's Ghost and Glacier growing pains, the Battlefield 6 developers knew they had to get it right this time, and that meant truly listening to player feedback. They couldn't afford another launch where players felt ignored. So in early 2025, DICE and EA tried something unprecedented for the franchise. They launched Battlefield Labs, a program that invited small groups of dedicated Battlefield fans to play in-progress builds of Battlefield 6 and provide feedback during development. Think of it as an insider council of players, a series of closed community playtests happening months before release behind closed doors. They want to get honest, unfiltered feedback into the development pipeline while there is still time. In the aftermath of 2042, this approach was a breath of fresh air. Battlefield Lab sessions began around February 2025. Small groups of invited players, drawn from the community's most passionate members, were flown in or given remote test access under NDAs. During these sessions, the devs would let fans play specific slices of the game and then listen closely to their reactions and critiques. Crucially, the focus early on was squarely on the fundamentals, those very pain points that had made 2042 so controversial. The team zeroed in on things like core gunplay, soldier movement, class design, and environmental destruction. If Battlefield 6 was to succeed, it needed to feel right at a basic level. Indeed, one of the first things DICE prioritized was restoring the series' trademark destructibility that many felt 2042 had dialed back. Lead multiplayer producer Jeremy Chubb later revealed that Battlefield Bad Company 2, famous for its satisfying ability to blow up buildings, was a huge inspiration for the new game's approach to destruction. True to that inspiration, Battlefield 6's updated engine allowed every wall and structure in test maps to be blasted apart piece by piece, a deliberate return to form. Testers and labs were encouraged to try and level things, and their feedback was instrumental in fine-tuning how far DICE would go with all-out destruction. Labs' feedback drove other key design adjustments as well. For example, soldier movement was tweaked in response to tester input. DICE noticed players in 2042 had exploited slides and bunny hops to an absurd degree, hurting tactical play. So in Battlefield 6, the devs experimented with movement nerfs, reducing how much momentum you can carry from sliding into a jump, and adding a penalty for consecutive jumps to discourage bunny hopping. After Labs testers responded positively to these changes, the team locked them in, ensuring movement would reward positioning over spammy acrobatics. Another major area of debate was the specialist versus class system. Battlefield 2042's shift to unique specialists had been one of the most polarizing decisions. Many fans wanted the old class system back, but some appreciated the flexibility of specialists. In Labs, DICE tried a compromise, offering both modes. They set up a separate closed playlist where weapons and gadgets were restricted by classic classes, as well as open playlists where the specialist style remained. The lab session showed this approach satisfied both camps, as players liked having the choice. Come launch, Battlefield 6 would indeed ship with both class-based and open loadout modes available side by side, a direct result of listening to community preferences. EA and DICE were almost paranoid about avoiding another Battlefield 2042 situation. They knew their credibility was on the line, not to mention the enormous budget. By mid-2025, they were describing Battlefield Labs as the most ambitious community collaboration in Battlefield's history, and to their credit, it was. DICE didn't just collect feedback, they acted on it. After each Labs playtest, the team huddled to discuss what worked and what didn't, then actually implemented changes for the next session. Players in later rounds of testing could literally see features evolve based on their earlier comments, a new map layout tweaked here, a weapon recoil adjusted there. This iterative process was far more agile than Battlefield's past development cycles, and it paid off. Of course, keeping such tests confidential was impossible. Leaks inevitably happened. Clips and impressions from the invite-only test slipped out to Reddit. But rather than panic, the developers took it in stride. They knew that some controlled leaking could even build hype as long as the buzz was good. And indeed, much of the leak chatter was encouraging. Whispers that Battlefield is back started circulating online. The community heard rumors of BF3 and BF4 vibes, of lovingly crafted maps with lots of vehicles and destruction, of movement that felt tighter. By the summer of 2025, even as the game had yet to be officially revealed, Battlefield fans' pessimism was turning into cautious optimism. The narrative was changing from "oh no, is this another 2042?" to "wait, this actually sounds promising." It was now mid-2025. Internally, EA executives were feeling more hopeful, but the real test was yet to come. They needed to reveal this game to the world and prove to everyone that Battlefield was truly on the mend. After much deliberation, EA Marketing lined up a tight timeline. Battlefield 6 was officially revealed to the public in July 2025, with a flashy announcement trailer that finally unveiled the game's real title. The revealer trailer showcased snippets of the campaign and multiplayer, emphasizing a tone that was back to the roots. Just a week later, a full multiplayer gameplay trailer dropped, giving a deeper look at maps, vehicles, and the all-important sandbox chaos that fans craved. Importantly, DICE did something that surprised and delighted the community. Alongside the trailers, they announced that an open beta would be launching only a couple of weeks later in early August 2025. This rapid turnaround between reveal and hands-on play was intentional. It sent the message that the game is ready, see for yourself. After the content-light marketing and long delays of 2042, this felt like a confident breath of fresh air. When the Battlefield 6 open beta went live, the response blew even EA's optimistic expectations out of the water. Over 500,000 players flooded the beta on Steam alone, peaking at around 521,000 concurrent users just on the platform. To put that in perspective, the 2042 beta peak was about 155,000, and 2042's all-time peak after launch was 107,000. Battlefield 6 was already shattering franchise records in beta. In fact, during one wild moment, Battlefield 6 briefly became the #1 most played game on all of Steam, at least in North America, surpassing even Valve's own CS:GO for a short period. The excitement was palpable. The Battlefield 6 beta has broken Call of Duty's Steam player count record, surging past 500,000 concurrents, one incredulous headline declared. Longtime community members remarked that they hadn't seen this level of hype for a Battlefield game in over a decade. More importantly, the general sentiment from beta players was overwhelmingly positive. The game felt fun, chaotic in the right ways, and significantly more polished than 2042's infamous beta build. Battlefield is really back this time, read one early impression making the rounds on social media. For the developers, this was a heartening validation. The successful beta was the confidence boost EA was looking for, proof that the Battlefield Labs approach had paid off in delivering a stable, fan-improved core product. The beta wasn't flawless. Some players experienced long queue times to get into matches because demand was that high, and a few matchmaking hiccups occurred. But these were minor quibbles compared to the overall buzz. DICE immediately vowed to iron out those queue issues by launch. They even jokingly referred to the queue as the first boss battle players had to overcome. Meanwhile, the flood of positive feedback pushed pre-order numbers higher than EA's had been in years, and even gave EA's stock price a little bump as analysts grew optimistic about Battlefield 6's prospects. The stage was set for a big comeback. Fast forward to October 2025, launch day. 4 years of toil, drama, reinvention, and hope all culminated on a crisp fall morning when Battlefield 6 finally went live worldwide. And the result? In short, a blockbuster launch, especially on PC. Within 25 minutes of release, Battlefield 6 blew past 521,000 concurrent players on Steam, matching its beta peak and then climbing even higher. It rocketed up the charts, becoming one of Steam's top 20 most played games ever within the first hour. By that evening, the game hit a peak of 704,000 concurrent players on Steam, officially making it EA's biggest Steam launch of all time, dethroning the free-to-play Apex Legends, which had held 624,000. Over its opening weekend, the number would climb further. SteamDB recorded an all-time peak of 747,440 players on Steam, an astonishing figure that nearly quadrupled the series' previous highs. The game's massive player base even helped push Steam to a new overall concurrent user record that weekend. It was clear, interest in Battlefield was back in a big way. Inevitably, so many players rushing in at launch caused server queues tens of thousands long at times, but notably, there were no major server crashes or game-breaking outages. Despite the heavy load, the infrastructure largely held up. This was night and day contrast to Battlefield 2042's launch, where server issues and bugs had made the game borderline unplayable for many in the first week. DICE's extensive network testing and multiple beta/tech test rounds had paid dividends. 1 week before release, the lead engineer had cautiously stated that the servers should be ready for the onslaught, and they were. Apart from the inconvenience of waiting in a queue, which some fans actually found humorously reassuring, a sign of healthy demand, things went smoothly. In fact, EA responded to the unexpected long queues with a touch of grace. They proactively offered all affected players a bundle of free XP boosters and 2 bonus Battle Pass tokens as an apology for the wait. It was a small gesture, but one the community appreciated, a far cry from the radio silence that had followed 2042's launch woes. As the dust settled in the days after release, community response to Battlefield 6 was overwhelmingly positive. Longtime fans were relieved, even a bit astonished, that the game turned out as well as it did, given all the behind-the-scenes turmoil. Social media and forums lit up with gleeful clips of epic in-game moments, skyscrapers crumbling from well-placed explosives, squads actually working together using the restored class roles, tanks and helicopters dueling amid fully destructible cities, a spectacle many felt 2042 sorely lacked. This feels like the Battlefield we fell in love with became a common refrain among veteran players. On Steam, the game achieved an 82% very positive user rating in its early launch window, with gamers praising Battlefield 6 for its gameplay, optimization, graphics, and finally listening to their player base, making Battlefield feel like Battlefield again. The sense of renewed community energy was unmistakable. Critically, Battlefield 6 also fared well. Reviews across the board noted that despite a so-so campaign, the multiplayer experience was a triumphant return to form for DICE. The game earned an average score in the mid-80s on Metacritic, the highest for the series in nearly a decade. Many outlets echoed the sentiment that Battlefield is back. One reviewer called it a stunning blend of large-scale warfare, explosive destructibility, and teamwork-driven chaos, and scores like 9 out of 10 and 95 out of 100 rolled in from several publications. Even more telling, player concurrency stayed strong in the weeks after launch. Battlefield 6 retained hundreds of thousands of active players at any given time, rather than nosediving after a few days. This indicated that people weren't just trying it, they were sticking around, a huge win for a live service title. It truly was the franchise's best launch in memory, if not ever. All told, the launch of Battlefield 6 was the polar opposite of Battlefield 2042's notorious debut. Instead of headlines about bugs and refunds, the news was about record-high player counts, celebratory fan chatter, strong sales out of the gate, and a relieved development team finally seeing their hard work vindicated. Inside EA and DICE, one can imagine a collective sigh of relief, and perhaps the clinking of a few champagne glasses. They had stared into the abyss after 2042 and somehow managed to pull Battlefield out of it. Battlefield 6 emerged battle-scarred, but victorious from its protracted development hell. As we clink our glasses and finish the story at our cozy bar, the tale of Battlefield 6 stands as a testament to the power of second chances. It's a story of how a franchise nearly derailed by its own ambition and missteps was saved by humility, hard work, and a willingness to listen to the players. The road to get here was anything but smooth. It was 4 years of internal turmoil, leadership changes, a cancelled studio, design U-turns, and grueling crunch. But in the end, Battlefield 6 launched in October 2025 to a roaring crowd of fans numbering in the millions, with the Battlefield community raising their voices not in anger this time, but in triumph. The war isn't over, of course. In the upcoming months and years, DICE will have to prove that they can sustain this goodwill with solid post-launch support. Live service games are a marathon, not a sprint. But for now, Battlefield 6 has won the battle. The franchise that had been left for dead has finally found its redemption. And as the bar lights dim and we finish our drinks, we toast to the hard-fought comeback of Battlefield, a comeback that was hard-earned and well-deserved.